Steve, we're getting blasted back to the past, and this is Aeon of Ruin. It's a title that I keep messing up the name of, but regardless, this is something that's kind of similar to a Quake, kind of similar to a Doom, but kind of unique of its own. This is definitely one of those fast-paced corridor kind of shooters, and it's set in a really dark kind of fantasy world. I'm not certain if we're in limbo, but it seems like we're crushing this world, clearing it of evil, and that will sustain it for future for some of the lost souls along the way. The story is really kind of muted, not exactly what you're here for in this game, but my first impression of this was that it's, well, quite fast. It lives in the shadows of something like Quake, but I love that kind of really fast-paced bullet shooter, so that's my little first impression on there. What did you think about this one getting in?
Oh, I had a blast. This is so much fun. I've never played a lot of Quake or a lot of the earlier Doom, so for me this is first kind of main experience of like a hack and slash dungeon corridor kind of just go in, no story, and just kill everything in sight. And they did do a very good job. I mean, it's got the retro graphics, like the kind of the 8-bit kind of style, and it works very well, especially when you get into the action, because when the enemies come towards you, it is very, very fast paced. There's a plethora of weapons, but when you initially start off, you only start off with a blade, and it almost kind of reminds me of like the Assassin's Creed kind of like the hidden blade. So you just go around and when you start slashing a few skeletons, and then straight away you pick up a pistol, and then you have to go around, find the bullets for every weapon that you find. But it does get a little bit tricky as well, because you do find that you will end up going round and round quite a few times and trying to figure out where you have to go, because you do not have any map. And then what you do is you have to look out for hidden switches to open either doorways or elevators, or open another area for you to proceed into the next part of the world. As I say, there's not really much clarity of what you're supposed to do, and I did get lost quite a lot of time, but I did love the weapons.
Oh, it's that getting lost is something that's frustrating, but it is kind of typical in the boomer shooters, as they call them. That's something that there's a lot of hallmarks in this game that does harken back to a Doom, and there's something that's just a touch different. The keys that you mentioned, you're getting little switches, hidden keys, hidden opening up doors. Yeah, red key for the red door, blue key for the blue door. That's something we've seen in Doom a lot. But you mentioned this blade, and
Yes.
from henceforth I'll refer to it as Quake-like, because this blade is, well, paradoxically the opposite of Quake. You have a melee weapon for once, and what's the best part of that melee weapon is the alternate fire use of it. So each of these weapons have a different primary and secondary fire that functions differently, and you're going to need those to conquer a lot of these monsters and the ginormous numbers of creatures. But that blade you can use to kind of slingshot yourself around the map, and that's what you use to get through a lot of sections, skip over huge sections, or find a lot of the secrets, because just like Quake, just like Doom, there's a ton of secrets around, and a lot of those are hidden items, objects, kind of relics that you can use. And that's, again, another thing that's quite different from Quake. Instead of just a quad damage or invulnerability for moments, there's things that can turn some of the enemies against each other. You can activate a vampiric effect to heal yourself. So there's a lot of different kind of strategies that you might ignore until you very desperately need them. And that's what's going to give you that kind of eureka moment. There was a few sections where I was lost and I was super frustrated, because I'm running through the same thing again and again and again, just getting it a little bit wrong each time. But that is kind of what I expect from those games. That difficulty is necessary to make a good Quake-like game. And sometimes, again, I'm mixing up Quake and Doom. I feel like the Doom Slayer in this game, because when you get it right, it all comes together just right.
Yeah, and I want to sort of touch on a little bit about the controls. Like you mentioned before, like you have your knife, and what you've got is like a dash where you charge this knife up, and it just sort of speeds you across like a dash, which you use to actually go across areas to jump from one place to another, or get from point A to point B. But the problem I had was when I first started was I was running and then you sort of like do a jump and then try this dash and there was a delay and you'll never kind of make it. So what I found is that what you had to do was stand on the edge, charge up the sword, hit the jump button, then release it to get across. So that was one of my issues. It wasn't smooth enough, especially when you have a lot of things going on. And on the way, you get soul tethers where you can have a quick save point. And what they did was they used that for the up D-pad to do the quick save. But unfortunately, you use the left and right D-pad to flick through your weapons. And unfortunately for me, a couple of times I hit a few of these soul tethers and used them up in areas that already just dropped them. So... And the other issue I had again was some of the creatures, like sighting them up to take the shots. I found the crosshair, like lining up the shots, didn't always went as smoothly as I would like to.
Yeah, it's not perfect. I have to say the controls is probably one of the lesser appreciated aspects of the game. I don't think it works incredibly well on keyboard. I felt the need to go to controller myself, and I have the Stadia controller, which is a great piece of hardware in my opinion, but having to use the D-pad to select the different weapons didn't quite make sense to me when you can hold different buttons to bring up radial wheels to select. That seems like a much better system, so that's something that I wish was implemented in this game. But overall, this is an interesting game, and I'm going to throw this to a score. I believe this is an 8 out of 10, which is saying a lot, but it is, again, riding in the shadow of Quake. It stands alongside Quake. It's not going to be as good as some of those progenitors of the subgenre, but it is solid nonetheless.
Yep, and I'm with you with this, Scott, as well. I'm giving this an 8. Like I said, it's my first experience. I do know of Doom and Quake, and for me, it didn't stand out as something like its own game. It felt like it was a mashup of both games put together. And like I said, it is a lot of fun.